Hello and welcome. This is Channels TV Abuja Studios. Let's continue the conversation on politics from Lunchtime Politics. This is Political Paradigm. I'm Terry Ikumi. And just before we go into the conversation of the day, there's breaking news from the National Assembly. The leadership of the National Assembly has now been announced. And in the Senate, Senator Godswill Akpabio has announced the offices of the Senate, which he says emerged by consensus. Senator Opeyemi Bamidele from Ekiti State, APC, has been announced as the Senate leader, while Senator Dave Umahi from Ebonyi State, a first-time senator, has been announced as the Deputy Senate leader. Senator Aline Dume from Borno State is the Chief Whip, and Senator Lola Ashiru from Kwara State is the Deputy Chief Whip. For the minority leadership of the Senate, Senator Simon Davu from Plateau State is the minority leader. He's from PDP. Oyewumi Olalere Osun West, PDP, is the Deputy Minority Leader. Darlington Mwokocha Abia Central Labour Party is the Minority Whip. He was a member of the House of Representatives. And Rufai Hanga from Kano Central, NNPP, is the Deputy Minority Whip. Meanwhile, in the House of Representatives, the Speaker of the House has also announced the leadership of the 10th House. The Minority Leader is Kingsley Chinda from the PDP. The Deputy Minority Leader is Aliyu Madaki, NNPP. Minority Whip is Ali Issa, PDP. The Deputy Minority Whip is George Ebizimao. He's from the Labour Party. The House Majority Leader is Professor Julius Ihobere. He is from Edo State on the platform of the All Progressives Congress. Deputy Majority Leader is Halins Abdullahi, APC. Chief Whip is Bello Kumo, APC Gombe, and Deputy Chief Whip is Adeumi Onanuga. Now, it's understandable why you see the spread in the minority leadership from the PDP, the Labour Party, and the NNPP, considering the diverse nature of the National Assembly. Let's get into the conversation. My guest today is a lawyer and former spokesperson, or perhaps still spokesperson, of the former spokesperson of the Atiku Presidential Campaign Organization, Mr. Daniel Bwala. Welcome to Political Paradigm.
Thank you for having me.
It's nice to see you. You appear to be well rested despite the move to reclaim the mandate of the PDP, as you say. But let's begin the conversation from the breaking news, the leadership of the National Assembly. As of yesterday, there were concerns as to who would emerge as the minority leader of the... Of course, it was supposed to be the PDP, but there were concerns. And the concerns were majorly because of the back and forth between the Atiku faction of the PDP and the Nyesom Wike faction. What's your reaction to this list?
Did you... I think I lost out on this minority for the Senate. Have they announced that?
Oh, yes, that has been announced. The minority leadership of the Senate has been announced. I'll quickly just give you that. It's Simon Davu from Plateau State.
Which party?
PDP.
The information I read earlier today was later that the leadership of PDP, the National Working Committee and some National Assembly Leadership Caucus, sent to the Senate President saying that he should stay the idea of the election or announcement of minority leadership in the Senate pending when they will reach out because they're having consultation. So this one is strange to me, actually. It's very likely that it is a script that APC had always wanted to do to sort of influence the outcome of leadership from the other party. But I will find out. But to the best of my knowledge, the information I read as early
No, this is breaking news. You do realize that we have correspondents in the National Assembly.
So the entire leadership of the People's Democratic Party accepted that?
Well, that's according to the letter from the Senate President, and there's no report of dissenting voices from that. But then, this is, Simon Davu is not a candidate that you or your party endorses, is he?
Yeah, because the individuals I know that have expressed interest are people like Senator Ningi, Senator Tambuwal, Senator Timi Pres'l, and who again, I think Senator... from Cross River, I can't remember the name now, Jarigbe. And I think these are some of the people whose names have been circulating as interested parties. We don't know if they have come out actually to say this is what they're intending to do. So it will be surprising to me that these individuals aren't mentioned or nobody emerged from amongst them. And then the name he just announced kind of came up. I will find out, but this is strange to me, quite frankly. But I'll find out.
So if this is, so you're not sure if this is a list from your party?
Yes,
because
I'm not sure.
Like you, we all got the report as well.
Right.
But there were concerns as to stay of action on the announcement of the list.
Correct.
And it was specifically because Tambuwal was tipped to be the minority leader, which of course the Nyesom Wike faction had kicked against. Oh. So does this look like a list that you believe is from the other faction?
Yeah, this looks like a fake news. What I mean by fake news, not because you reported it, but because it was given. You know, you report what happens in the National Assembly. And Senator Akpabio controls the National Assembly as not just the Senate President, but now the chairman of the National Assembly. So whatever news they give out to the press will have to broadcast it. But to the best of my knowledge, people who are contending for these positions, this name you mentioned is not there. But I'll find out. But very much suspected that this might be the handprint of APC.
So if you look at this minority list, which is of interest to you as a member of the PDP, you find that it's diverse, and it's because there's the NNPP now, and then there's the Labour Party,
correct,
which have now become a part of minority leadership because of their numbers.
Right.
So to what extent did you have an engagement with the NNPP and the Labour Party with regard to the persons of interest of the PDP?
Well, quite frankly, I do not have facts in that regard, but I know that PDP is a party that believes in consultation and engagement. But I don't know to what extent they've engaged with other political parties. But I know for sure that PDP is interested in playing that opposition role. And anytime we use the word opposition, people often think as if it is anti-progress. No, it's providing checks and balance, providing alternative to government. You see the world over where you see opposition playing their role and part as alternative. So, for example, with fuel subsidy, without opposition telling the Nigerian people that in our own manifesto, we agree to the removal of subsidy. However, the implementation strategy that we outlined in our manifesto is quite different. Without opposition providing that, Nigerian people will think as if everything is just haywire. So that's the essence of opposition. And I don't think that the ruling party should see that as a threat and begin to go beyond the confines of their jurisdiction to say we're going to interfere like meddlesome interloper in that regard. So, but I know my party wants to play that role of opposition in the National Assembly, and it is critical because that's the whole idea of democracy. And to be fair to President Bwala Tinubu, I think I've heard him once or twice where he said, we asked for this job, and therefore we don't complain. It behoves of us the responsibility of doing it. I think I should hear more of that from him, welcoming criticism, welcoming engagement that is diverse but for the good of Nigeria. Do you know that the world over, legislations that have developed countries have always been the bipartisan legislation? Because in bipartisan legislation, both parties are looking at a legislation that is going to be for the good of all. That is the interest they represent, the interest the governing party represents. But partisan legislation have developed parties, bipartisan legislation developed countries. And so the idea, because President Bwala Tinubu has always been known as one who believes in a one-party state in his own political strategic move, right? And what he's doing is quite obvious. You know, that interference in our party with the G5, who are currently doing their, what we call the youth service with APC. You know, the idea of wanting to ensure that you stifle other political parties that are not yours, so you can have just one voice. But it doesn't work like that, especially because the executive actually produced the leadership of the National Assembly, the governing party. So National Assembly, as of today, presently constituted, is a rubber stamp of the executive. It's a fact. So they need to give room, air of fresh air, breath of fresh air to the opposition to play that role so we can have a viral democracy.
So you think that the minority leadership, as announced today, cannot play that role of an opposition?
I doubt. I don't even know them in the first place.
But you're familiar with Mr. Kingsley Chinda and how the APC in 2019 did not want him to emerge because of how vocal he is.
Yeah, but now times have changed. Kingsley Chinda is an apologist of Wike. Wike is doing his youth service with APC. Wike's spirit, soul, and body is with APC. So if the leadership of the party is an appendage of Nyesom Wike, for example, what confidence will I, as a person now, I'm not talking about a party, right? I'm giving my personal opinion. And that's why I told you that the spokesperson thing has been dissolved. So we are just free members of the party expressing our thoughts. How confident will I be that such an individual will pose opposition? Wike is as alleged, is looking for juicy appointment in this government. He would ordinarily not want people associated with him to be a problem to the government. So, and it is, I just hope that we will push the envelope further, this democracy. Let us make progress. Let's not be pegged by this idea of a one-party state ideology where you not only come to power by whatever means conceivable and necessary to you, but you are extending the bounds on that influence to the opposition party where you want to dictate who becomes who in that opposition party in the National Assembly, so you can advance your cause without any check and balance.
Mr. Bwala, but what does this say of the PDP? I ask this because it's been months now since after the elections, and some would expect that, considering how important the opposition is in any democracy, that the PDP will be pursuing reconciliation at this point. But it seems like it's getting worse.
Yeah.
What does this say of the PDP? And why are there no reconciliatory moves? At least not visible enough.
Actually, there have been reconciliation moves, both before the campaigns, during the campaigns, and even after the campaigns. I remember recently there was a meeting in Bauchi, to that effect. However, as an ordinary member of the party, I am concerned that the G5 question has not been dealt with. It is the major problem. And I say that because I look at it from the point of view that if the court should consequently give an order for a runoff or rerun, whichever, are we in a better shape to push with the G5 interference or the G5 problem in the party? You see, because every political party, and President Bwala Tinubu inclusive, he will not tolerate anti-party of that magnitude, right? So if you have a political party where you have key members of the party or stakeholders of the party consistently working against the interests of the party, and even after election, they position themselves in such a way where they will consistently undermine the party, so that by the time a runoff is declared, they will want to make sure that the party is at a weakened position to go into the election. What is strange to me as a person and as a private citizen is, why has the party not taken a decision on them? First of all, the party can survive without anybody. Second of all, they have broken every law in the book. And third of all, even the court has now said, PDP, you can suspend anybody who does not adhere with your rules. So what is the party waiting for? That's my question. You see, because if you keep saying we're engaging, and obviously they are not responding, because we have had meetings, they have been contacting you.
Who's engaging who?
The leadership of the People's Democratic Party.
Led by who? The chairman?
The acting chairman is the alleged Demagogue.
So he's leading the reconciliation?
He is. And the candidate of our party has always been open to, reconciliation. There was a recent meeting, I know, in Bauchi, where the party all agreed to work together. Governor Makinde was in that meeting. A week or two later, Governor Makinde was in a different event where he was insulting the candidate of the party. You see, this kind of a thing. So who is violating the code for reconciliation? All the utterances after the election that have been against the interests of the parties have always come from the G5. You see, but even if you want to do your NYSC, for example, in APC and with the government, you should understand that before you go for NYSC, you have to finish your degree, right? You have not completed your degree program. And you've gone for NYSC, so the timing is even wrong. And let's come to Team Coffee. As people are alleging, I don't know how true that is. Is ministerial position what all this problem? What is the intrinsic ideology you've always had? If Nigerian space gives room for investigative journalism, where as Bwala is here, you take me back to the history and bring up my ideology of the party, for example. All these individuals who are doing romance with the APC and the government, what they are doing today is antithetical to what they stood for.
I think it's interesting that you talk about ideology, because you used to belong to this same party.
Correct.
But you now castigate and you question what ideologies will drive anyone to want to work with them. Well, let us not talk about it.
No, we're free to talk about it.
We had talked about this in the past. But here's something else, because you had stated your position on why you left the party at the time. But let's not dwell on that.
And do I still hold that view? Yes.
It is not about you. You talked about when we spoke
Right.
almost a year ago,
Right.
just before the elections, you said that the PDP, Atiku, can win this election without the G5, and that the Labour Party would stand no chance.
Right.
And here you say that with the state of the PDP now and reconciliatory moves not looking like yielding anything, that there is an unlikelihood that the PDP could win this election if it goes to a rerun.
That they will place us in a weakened, not unlikelihood, in a weakened position.
But your concern is that you would be weak going into a rerun because of the state of the party right now.
My concern is that when that time comes, because some of them are governors, some of them are former governors who have influence over the governors, and elections are won at the local unit in various states. If they tax their people to work against our party, it will reduce the extent of the victory that we can get. But as per whether they affected that election that was conducted, they never did. We won the election.
You think it did not affect the election?
It affected our victory in the sense that it reduced the victory to a little over 2 million.
And you still say that if there's a rerun, you may not need them to win the rerun?
We don't need them.
Let me tell you.
And we don't need
Let me
them.
tell you what facts say based on the outcome of the results.
Right.
And it's clear that the PDP, the NNPP,
Right.
and the Labour Party would have won that election if they came together against the APC because of the numbers. The APC won with 8 million votes. Cumulatively, the PDP, the NNPP, and the Labour Party had almost 14 million votes.
So this is my point. The APC did not win with 8 million votes. INEC allocated votes to the APC to the tune of 8 million. If you see,
But I think that's why we're in court.
but yes, but European Union, which is one of the international observers accredited by INEC, and by the way, that gave the federal government of Nigeria 38 million euros to prepare for the election. So they are a stakeholder, right? European Union did their own findings and came out with a result. And in their report, they said only 31% of the result were mathematically correct. I mean, I don't know which school in this country or in this world where you get 31% and they will say you've passed the exams. The last time I checked, the lowest you can get to say you've passed, it has to be above 40. And that is pass. Some have gone, when I was doing my New York bar, if you score less than 75%, you have still failed. There is nothing, you either win or fail. It's just like medical examination. Now, look at it this way. INEC allocated, evidence abound. Now, matters in court, I don't delve with it because I have a higher understanding and responsibility. But I'm just telling you that the European Union report says only 31% of the result in IREF were mathematically correct. And the federal government said that we don't believe in you and the rest. Meanwhile, it is the same European Union that they collected 38 million euros to conduct the election from. It is the same European Union that came and collaborated with the federal government in training and retraining of people towards the conduct of election. It is the same European Union that President Bwala Tinubu traveled to, that they made a story out of it, that he traveled to Europe to engage with everybody, he will meet with presidents, everything will go good, and the rest. How can you approbate and reprobate at the same time?
But have you seen the statement of the federal government? So while you say that the EU donated towards this election, the statement of the federal government spokesperson, special advisor, media and special duties, is quite questionable on how the EU arrived at this. Specifically, he said the EU deployed no fewer than 50 persons. I think it would be best if I read it. I think for the benefit of the viewers, it would be nice if I read that. So the statement says that our earlier position that the technology-aided 2023 general elections were the most transparent and best organized elections since the return of civil rule in Nigeria has been validated by all non-partisan foreign and local observers, such as the African Union, ECOWAS, Commonwealth Observer Mission, and the Nigerian Bar Association. Now, their statement goes further to say that that was unlike the EU that deployed fewer than 50 observers. The NBA sent out over 1,000 observers spread across the entire country for the same election. And according to that statement, the NBA gave a more holistic and accurate assessment of the elections. Now, he says the NBA is reporting that 91.8% of Nigerians rated the conduct of the national and state elections as credible and satisfactory.
So this is the problem. NBA gave a percentage, without giving the data of, that's one thing about data, without giving the data how they arrive at 91%.
Now, the report says that the AMBA was more holistic and accurate.
That's his statement.
And the report also said that the AMBA deployed more election observers
but
than
what's the
EU.
data? They don't have the data. And remember, without sounding brash at the bar to which I belong, majority of individual members of the bar did not subscribe to the report issued by MBA. And I say that with every sense of responsibility. So it cannot be taken as the views of the entire members of the bar. Unless if the MBA can give facts and statistics to say, we ran a stats, we ran polling, where we arrive at that. Not polling, just everybody where figure. And let me even tell you one funny part. And I think that President Bwala has to be wary of that and look at it. Because if there is anything that undermined President Buhari during his time, was the fact that they said people who speak for him did not have the facts, did not represent the realities of Nigeria. It is happening here. If you look at the European Union report, the EU report, you saw two of their spokespersons penciled out in that report as people that were peddling fake news, substantiated in that report. Not just they say it, they gave the date, what they said, how it was debunked by facts and figures. And so Tinubu cannot afford to run a government with individuals who want to tell him what they think he wants to hear and then give him falsehood, false information, and fake news. You may have applied fake news before the election, but now it's some serious stuff. This European Union that in a statement he's insulting them, his principal will go behind and beg them. Because the world exists, we coexist, right? You need help. Okay, I'll give you an example. IMF and World Bank, they promised $800 million to the government. Immediately, government announced subsidy removal in order to access the $800 million. Concomitant effect on the Nigerian people. Everybody is suffering because there was no clear-cut plan, well-designed plan. And that's because the proper thing to do, if not because of the influence of World Bank and IMF, would have been to constitute your government, have ministers, have officers. Then you ask for a report. They come out with clear-cut definition and an idea on how to implement. Push the government resources and then declare removal of subsidy. The impact will be there, but will not be very, very bad. I read Financial Times a few days ago, and Financial Times London said, with the way the federal government of Nigeria applied the removal of subsidy, before this policy will take shape, it will take about 8 to 9 months. So that means, realistically, the Nigerian people are going to be in this abject poverty and hardship, and from now till the end of the year before it can take shape. I give you an example one by one, not just speaking for the optics. You remove fuel subsidy. What happens? Every fabric of our life is impacted. It is not just transport, but for transport now, the increase in prices of transportation, you start from Okada to taxi to buses to aeroplane, everything, they falls under that. Now, the young man, the middle class man, salary has not increased. You are still talking with labor. You have not even agreed. What would have been the proper thing is you engage with these stakeholders, arrive, even if you disagree with labor, you come up with your proposal and say, okay, since you people are insisting 200,000 is the minimum, I think that it's 100, and we're implementing it. You release it.
But Mr. Bwala, I think even your principal had agreed that he would take out fuel subsidy.
But he said that we are, it's in our manifesto, that we are going to engage with the stakeholders.
But the point I'm making is this, Mr. Bwala. There was no budget for subsidy beyond June.
Right. So
what were you expecting the Tinubu administration to do after June?
No. The answer is very simple. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, I believe he has people around him that know law. All he needed to do, because already President Buhari was in default, what he needed to do was to bring a proposal to the National Assembly.
For the timeline. Terminating.
Yes, the timeline, the removal.
June, okay.
All he needed was to bring a proposal to the National Assembly for the amendment and extension by 6 months. I mean, it's not coming out of the moon. Now, within this period of 6 months, okay, we have come to the end of the month. There is a revenue that by now ought to have been generated as a result of the removal of fuel subsidy. How are you going to implement it? No minister is in government at the moment to implement government project to impact on the people. Are you going to apply the social intervention of yesteryears where they were giving peanuts to people? So that's not the cushioning effect people are talking about.
I think we will come to more details about the Tinubu administration very soon. But I just want us to exhaust the conversation on the EU report, which is generating controversy. And it's just about the same question that I would ask a member of the Tinubu administration, which is, And I'll ask you this differently because the Tinubu, nobody from here, from Tinubu administration is here to defend. So when you say that the EU report should be taken holistically, do you ignore the African Union, ECOWAS, Commonwealth Observer, and the NBA reports that sort of credited the elections?
Good. I will take them one after the other. I've just dealt with the issue of the NBA. It does not represent the views of the average members of the bar. And for you to arrive at that, you have to run a polling. You cannot, at the national level, as the executive, write a report and say it represents the interests of the bar. That's one. Then, with respect to the African Union, ECOWAS, these are African bodies. Where have they been all this while insecurity is ravaging Africa? It is all this you rub my back, I rub my back type of policy. Understandably, Nigeria is a big ball player in Africa. So they will want to pander in the direction of President Bwala Tinubu in order to get that favor. When you have an internal assessment, usually people will say, if you want a fair and balanced view, you have to bring somebody from the outside. Do you know I was in London? Some Nigerians are even running a conversation that if this is how election petition is running, Nigeria had better start looking at how to amend our laws, both the Constitution and the Electoral Act, where the Supreme Court of Nigeria will be the trial court in presidential election. An appeal from that decision should go to England. So that there is no tribal person, there is no sentiment, there is no government influence.
England?
Yes.
So where does the sovereignty of the country come in?
Well, that's wonderful, but we have mutual legal assistance with sovereign state. We share intelligence. We do that to Gambia and other countries.
You know, it's already a concern that our courts get to decide election cases. It raises question about the credibility because this is not something we see in developed countries.
So it was interesting when they said it in London. I said, you are talking, but it seems to say some kind of. I think it requires further conversation on that. We used to have West African Court of Appeal in Ghana before we got independent, where all appeals in the West Africa go to Ghana. Now, but we have confidence in our judicial system, and we believe that the Supreme Court will remain sacred. They will do justice according to law, and nobody will impugn on their sanctity and integrity.
I think it's interesting to hear you say that you do, because I was going to ask you what your thoughts are on the presidential elections petition court so far, because you have attended just about every sitting. So I think you've closed your case as well. Yeah,
we closed our case about 10 days ago. Then yesterday, interestingly, INEC was to open their defense, and you know, everybody had time. Like 3 weeks we were given. I think they had not less than by the time we were given. But, and they said initially that they were going to bring 3 witnesses. In the morning, the petition of Peter Obi and Lebo, the witnesses refused to show up. They refused to show up. Whether they were singing Davido's song, I'm unavailable, I don't know. But later in the afternoon, in our own case, one person showed up. And after the case, they said, we don't have any other person to present. I said, but the more people you bring, there might be a problem for you. I don't want to delve on the details of that. So INEC has closed her case as far as our own was concerned yesterday. And presumably by this morning, if they are through with the Labour Party, they are most likely going to close that. So that means the next thing we're going now is either of the respondents, either President Bwala Tinubu, then Bwala Tinubu, and or the All Progressives Congress will open it. We have our respects for the judicial system. I'm one of those individuals, even when the judiciary was under attack during Buhari's government, one of the fewest persons that stood up and defended them, because I believe that even if there are one or two bad eggs in the judicial system, you can't paint everybody like that. It's just like in journalism. There are bad journalists, but you don't destroy the journalism. There are bad lawyers, but you can't say all the lawyers are bad. And the only way you can strengthen the institution is by adding more confidence on that institution, by assisting the institution where it is necessary. So we are in the Court of Appeal, which is the trial court for the presidential, and so far so good. Whatever decision and whichever way it goes, all the parties will exhaust available options that they have. And then we see how we push democracy further.
You know, I had a conversation with the NNPP spokesperson, who's now a member of the Board of Trustees, Buba Galadima. You're very familiar with him.
It's my uncle.
He is, that's interesting information. So, Mr.
He's
Galadima...
actually on transit to APC.
He debunked that. I asked him that question.
But
He
if you
debunked
have
that.
followed...
We'll talk about that
Okay.
just a second. Mr. Galadima is of the opinion that, based on history, that there's been no upturn in the court's judgment with regard to a sitting president, and that's why the NNPP is not in court. So I asked him if he worries that the PDP and the Labour Party that are in court would get nothing from it, and he says yes. He also tied his submission to the recent statement from Senator Bukachua on his influence on his wife, who has since denied that.
Right.
So it's interesting that you have confidence in the court.
Yes.
But is the PDP in court confidently believing that there may be first in history situation with regard to the presidential election?
And there would always be first. If you look at Africa, we had so many engagement with foreign legal bodies. If you look at Africa, you have seen that in the last 2-3 years, we have had this first you're talking about. We have it in Malawi. We had it very close here in Kenya, where for the first time the Supreme Court, took a decision and obtained election. So there would always be a first. You can imagine if you, when you started out school, just because nobody in your family or clan became a journalist or whatever, you say you're not going to do it. You keep pushing the envelope until you get the first. And we believe that in our own lifetime and this moment that you see, the court is guided by evidence. What he's saying there may be a little truth, from it, that if you look at 1999 till date, we have never made that progress in that regard. But everything is changing, and you have to have confidence in them. Now, the statement that said the reason why they didn't go to court, with the greatest respect to him, is because they won't win election. No, they didn't go to court because they didn't have the fragrance to go to court. You didn't come second, you didn't come third. Even when you emerge as fourth, the numbers are there. Are you going to go to court of appeal to challenge governorship or presidential? You have to be clear about that.
You also talked about money, saying that the NNPP doesn't have 10-15 billion naira to go to court.
If you have the credibility, okay, Peter Obi, where did he get the money? Masses raised the money for him. In fact, they were better positioned financially.
So you think that Peter Obi has the credibility of them?
No, what I mean is, if Peter Obi is, because we are made to believe that Peter Obi was crowdfunded by people, right? Now, he dared and he went to court. If they are saying because they didn't have money to execute, first of all, if you don't have to even go for the presidential. You had the presidential election, and he was speaking from both sides. In one breath, he would say they actually won because they went all over Nigeria. In another one, he said they won, but they don't want to go to court because they don't have confidence in the outcome of the court. So I think that he's doing some, mechanical adjustment as they negotiate with APC. You will always have to have a reason. That's what they are doing. He doesn't have a valid point.
If you say that Peter Obi has the credibility, that's why he can
It is believed.
No, you said it yourself.
Yes, I say it is believed that he has the credibility.
How's Atiku funding this presidential elections petition, and does he have the credibility as well?
Yeah.
To crowd,
Atiku
fund.
No, the party is sponsoring the election.
But you don't think that the Labour Party is sponsoring?
It could be. I just gave you the picture of what he said. I don't say that's my opinion, right? But I don't know if the lawyers...
Who said?
I said it is widely believed that he has the credibility to do crowdfunding, because during the campaign, we challenge each other. And you will see on Twitter everywhere, even him, a number of occasions where he said, okay, didn't he go to America to raise money, remember? When they were raising dollars, then when he came back, there was allegation that he opened separate account and things like that. People funded him. Now, he may have brought money from his pocket, but what I'm saying is, if every kobo you bring to run for election comes from your pocket, you are not popular. If you're popular, people will support you. Some people will not bring the money. They will bring goodwill. There are people who hang around the Court of Appeal building every day protesting. Who is giving them money? Nigerians are careful about their destiny. You don't understand something, my brother. People are suffering. People are concerned about the future of their children. People are no longer talking about going abroad for study. They are talking about we can't pay school fees at home. Somebody who is earning 100,000 now cannot even do anything in life. With the removal of subsidy, 100,000 naira salary can't do anything for you. And when the chance permits for you to play a part in pushing this democracy forward, you have to play a part, except if you believe in your life that subserviency is your own path to progress and development. You see, what do you call him? NNPP. for all intent and purposes, and now, let's believe that they are surrogate of APC. So let's not even drag it much. So whatever they say, you have to look at it from the point of view that they are negotiating.
Is it because of the engagements that Kwankwaso has had with Tinubu?
Yeah, he has had, and then you see people from Ganduje camp complaining that they've been dumped. You know, one audio leak that went around where Ganduje was alleged complaining that because he's no longer in government, they've been dumped for Kwankwaso and all that. So they have their own politics there.
But what is wrong with that? I think the Tinubu administration is trying to run an all-inclusive government.
Correct. All-inclusive government is good, but if I were Tinubu, keep the all-inclusive conversation until after the outcome of election. Show good faith, right? Stop poaching political parties, identifying key people that are helpful in resisting certain things. You see, and to be fair, and I'm saying that because I know Tinubu as a person, right? Tinubu does not have, in my view, the problem of saying he wants to hurt people. But I've realized since 1999, that villa is like abyss. The minute somebody gets into there, a different spirit comes on you, where your sense of judgment and your direction suddenly changes. Some people interpret it to say that once you go there and you create your own cabal, because every government has a cabal, that the cabal, the quality of the cabal determines the quality of the direction you give to government, because ultimately you're going to be influenced by the cabal. So you see a well-intentioned man like Buhari spent 8 years that people are saying wasted time because the people he constituted did not direct him accordingly. So Tinubu may mean well, right, in the sense of wanting a unity government. That's a good one. In fact, that's the only option he has, because when you win election with less than 10% of the population, it is in your interest that you carry the country. You know what Yar'Adua did? When he saw after the election that it was a rigged process, the first place he went after he was sworn in was the Nigerian Bar Association. He went and told the world, and admit, the process that brought me was a rigged process, but I undertake to bring reform. He gathered the Nigerian people around him. That should be the posture of Tinubu, not denial that his people are going everywhere. This election was rigged. What are we talking? So what he needs to be saying is that, Nigerian people, I want us to come together and build a nation. But you see, you could do that more in terms of engaging others after the tribunal decision. And that speaks to the fact that we need to amend our laws so that whenever elections are conducted, there should be decisions of those elections in court determined to its finality before individuals are sworn in. So that when you are sworn in, nobody is confused as to whether to support you or not to support you. We'll all rally around and say, this is the commander-in-chief of the republic. And as patriotic citizens, we have to support that. But when you have a case in court, you have a president sworn in, there is a patriotic part of you that want to cooperate, but there is also the partisan part of you that feels that your mandate is stolen and you're already in court. So how do? You cannot altogether completely throw your weight of support, but if these election determination cases are determined, and if he is lucky enough to be sustained, then you could see that every Nigerian will have, except if you have hatred for the person, you will have no reason not to support your president, even if you will critique him.
Well, would this include your principal? Would he be open to a unity government?
If the Court of Appeal and Supreme Court decide against Atiku Abubakar, Atiku Abubakar will take it in good faith and he will support the program. In fact, I say it with every boldness. There is not a single politician in Nigeria that has contributed to the development of this democracy more than Atiku. And I say that because as a lawyer, I say it through the cases. From 1999, Atiku developed the jurisprudence of our democracy through the courts. Any dispute, rather than taking laws into his hand, he goes to the court. Don't forget, when he was vice president to Obasanjo, at that time, I think there were about 13 cases in court. He won 10 out of the 13. And as at the time they said he won 10 out of the 13, the other 3 were still pending. He believes in the judicial system. And that he believes in the judicial system does not mean he's unmindful of the fact that there are instances and situations where some judicial officers want to compromise election. I mean, they are not spirits. Even in America, judges are criticized. But you criticize that objectively. And you criticize it for the purposes of developing the jurisprudence. So I give you an example. If the Supreme Court called A, B, and they said the reason why A, they are calling it B is because they are code of public policy, meaning that they are departing from law and they are determining on public policy. It creates a jurisprudential conversation in the university, in the law school, in the bar association, public interest. That's pure the National Assembly to make a law to correct that. Before that Amaechi and INEC decision, after Amaechi and INEC, National Assembly corrected it so it doesn't have to be through the cases. So this is how, in my view, we will push this envelope and develop this democracy. But it is incumbent of the sitting government to make sure that the direction you give to the nation will be such that it will protect the integrity of the country. This idea of coming out to be insulting European Union for giving a factual report will not help matters. Tinubu can do this thing differently. With proper people advising him and proper spokesmen speaking for him, they will tell the Nigerian people, we take to heart the report of the European Union. Since we are in government, we will make sure that we act on it to ensure that the next election or whatever it is, before the judgment, you act as though you are there for 4 years and say we are going to work towards a better thing. You see that Nigerian sensibility will not be insulted. But to come out and say, the European Union, this Europe, you collected 38 million pounds, European this, European that, your president just came back from European Union. Why did he attend the program? European this, and tomorrow you will also be saying today, the president of Nigeria received the president of France. Another day you say the president of Nigeria received the president of Netherlands. And you are now saying that European Union, people should find a balance and speak truthfully.
Mr. Bwala, you seem to have a problem with the anticipated ministerial lists, which is likely to be presented to National Assembly either this week or next. And your major concern, based on your tweet, is for governors that are likely to make that list. You say that 90% of them have failed, and you don't think that the president should appoint governors. Are there specific governors that give you concern that could make that list?
No, I think the question should be, are there specific governors that you have confidence? Because the greater majority of the governors in Nigeria have not done well. Now, let me tell you why I said that.
Just a second. The question is, are there specific governors that give you concern that would raise concerns among Nigerians based on your thinking, if they make that list?
So my point is, I don't talk on specificity because it's not personal. It's a fact that the Nigerian people know. And you always said throughout the campaign, they told us that the president will replicate what he did in Lagos. In other words, he's banking on his Lagos record to produce. So if the governors you are appointing don't have a record when they were governors, that means they will reproduce the failure in your government. And this is my view. We cannot run a country that is run by governors in all spheres of life, right? They were governors for 4 years. They did not manage Paris reform. They did not manage allocation given to them, security vote. They bastardized their state. And 90%, there are few good governors. That's why you put it in percentage, right? So 90% have failed their states. Some of them went to the National Assembly. Those that couldn't make it to the legislature are now coming to the other part of executive to be ministers to replicate what? Because the idea is that when you bring somebody on board, you are saying that this is my goal. I want you to use your creativity and help achieve my point. And by the way, Tinubu said he has more than enough generation of people with thinking capacity to carry along. Why should the number of governors in his cabinet constitute more than 10%?
Or perhaps antecedents. That's why I'm asking you. I know that you're referring to, most likely, the G5 governors that have had engagements. You're not referring to the G5?
No, I'm not referring to them.
So do you think...
For example, if it is reference to them, among the G5, I mean, everybody knows Wike did well in his state, so I couldn't have been...
So you wouldn't have a problem with Wike emerging as a minister?
No, he can't even get it. How can he get... What will Tinubu do with Magnus Abe?
No, with his quality, as you put it.
So this is my view. If you appoint Wike as a... If Tinubu appoints... And mark what I'm saying, you will see it. If Tinubu appoints Wike as a minister, at the first time, there will be this joy that he rewards somebody who worked for him. But when you look at the characteristics of Wike, you will know he will give Tinubu problem. It's a matter of time. But it's up to him. And I will not start in the way. Like I told you, Wike did very well as a governor in terms of...
But you say he did well. And you advocate for the president to pick ministers that have good antecedents or something up here, as you put it. But then you say that he would have a problem with him. Is it with regard to how he would do his job, the quality of the job he would do as a minister? Because you've also mentioned Mr. Magnus, Senator Magnus Abe, which would have been a political compensation as well. So what are your concerns with regards to specifically Nyesom? And I say this because of the rift between him and your minister and the concerns as to why he worked against your party to sort of emerge as a minister. Would he make a good minister or not?
Wiki, first of all, I don't have an opinion as to whether he will make a good minister because it's not in my government. If, for example, Atiku is the president and you ask, will Wiki make a good minister in Atiku's government, I know Atiku's manifesto.
But you say, but his antecedents speak for him, according to you.
Good. So if you go by antecedents now and record, they said you will be a witness in Jerusalem, in Judea, in Samaria, and uttermost part of the earth. A man who could not manage his presidential candidate for whatever reason, can he be loyal to Tinubu? It's a matter of time. But that's not the particular point I'm saying with regards to governors. What I'm saying with regard to governors is, do we as a body and as a country run a government where the governors are alpha and omega? Pick a state, for example. Aren't there credible, intelligent, resource-oriented, with no... Do you know that some of these governors have been investigated? I'm saying that work with people without bad records. Now, bad record does not suggest conviction. The very fact that Terry is being investigated for financial crimes will be a distraction to Bwala having him in the government. But, you know, some people will say that he doesn't give a damn because even if you look at the legislation and all that, and I only said that out of respect for Tinubu because he wants to work in Nigeria. But I can tell you this, any president in Nigeria that runs a cabinet where more than 10% of the members are governors will not go anywhere. Let me repeat, any president in Nigeria that runs a cabinet with governors constituting more than 10% of the membership will not go far. Because a man who for 8 years, when he has all the powers in the world to command legislation and the rest and couldn't do something, I am imagining how in the world with limited resources in his ministry, he will perform miracles. Let's be realistic.
Speaking of this presidential, the ministerial list, would you be disappointed in the president if he submits a list to the National Assembly without portfolios?
Generally, he will not give portfolios. And probably tomorrow or day after, he will submit the list. But he will not put the portfolio. You know why? Even though he believes he has the National Assembly, you know, in terms of being robust, so whether you put a portfolio, they cannot, for example, refuse to confirm the person. They will just simulate and then clear the person. But sometimes leaders tend not to give the portfolio in order to spring surprises and then to also determine. Because if you send a name already with a portfolio, you have given the people the opportunity to profile him before you finally swear him in. And then there is also the possibility if he has a scandal, the scandal will just come up before the confirmation. So usually what they will do is that they will just say this is the number of people appointed for the ministerial position. But if he wants to run the government in a transparent manner, I think I'm of the view that you should send the names with the portfolios so that the Congress, as required by law, the National Assembly, will now interview them on the basis of their suitability or otherwise for the job. So, for example, if you want to send Attorney General of the Federation, you have to send somebody above board. Because, you see, from 1999 till yesterday, attorneys general in Nigeria have performed below 10% of the capacity of that office, not of them. Do you know that as chief law officer of the country, every law enforcement in the country is under him? When you look at FBI and you look at the Department of Justice and you see the way they work without problem, now every attorney general is a deal maker. Every attorney general is a contract signer. Every attorney general, that's why people advocated for the separation of the office of the attorney general and the minister of justice. So the attorney general will concern himself with the law that push the country forward. Minister of justice can be doing political patronage. But you see, even in America, they have the two in one. So you have to bring somebody that is suitable for the job. Somebody who has a vast knowledge of law, not because the person is a senior advocate. He may not even need to be a senior advocate in the first place. If you take somebody for Minister for Economy, you had in the last administration, somebody was made Minister for Education. Do you know what he said after he finished serving? He said until he was made minister, he didn't know anything about education. That is self-confession. So this is what you want to avoid. That's why you must bring people, and people say that Tinubu has that knack for getting people. I'll give you an example. The position of the National Intelligence Agency, NIA. I am impressed. I heard that somebody by the name Olaleye Jeyola is being considered. That is a smart man. That man, Rear Admiral Olaleye Jeyola, retired. I once knew when he was heading the Defense Intelligence College. Thorough experience and knowledge. Do you know the insecurity in Nigeria? We always think it's just about the state. There are foreign interference in the country. The office, so whoever becomes the NIA DG must be somebody who has not just the knowledge and capacity, but the reach, so that our national intelligence and counterintelligence will be in place to push this country forward. There is no post in this country that is trivial. Even FCT minister. If you go and bring somebody who is coming to compensate people and grab land grabber, hey, you go and bring a minister who is also like a bandit, you can never push. So every aspect of there are some of them that will be upgraded. For example, most likely, Alaki is going to be upgraded to Minister for Strategic Communication and Special Duties. Most likely, Wale Odun may end up becoming Minister of Economy or Minister of Central Bank Governor. When Ribadu was made SA on security, I was on your show with Sheun, and I said, don't mind them. Okay, no, I was on the program, I was saying why he shouldn't be because of politics and everything. Now, when he was made SA on security, I said, that's National Security Advisor. If you can check that on Twitter. People say, no, there's nothing. I say, that is National Security Advisor. That's Tinubu's system. He appoints you as SA and then upgrades it. And there are some of them who
and these are good appointments, are they?
Pardon?
These are good appointments.
You mean his own
so far,
National Security Advisor?
Far, all the appointments so far.
The service chief, yes. Because all of them have a record.
So which appointment do you fault?
Do I fault? I haven't actually taken note of that.
Mr. Bwala, our time is almost up, but let's go to something also equally important. The off-season elections, Imo, Bayelsa, and Kogi State, just about 4 months away from now. And the PDP doesn't seem to have its house in order. And there are concerns as to how this will play out in these states.
You know, state politics, again, like I told you much earlier, if the G5 extends their interference and disturbances at the state level, that's where we may have the problem, because the house divided against itself. Sometimes, even if you're able to, that's why my opinion is have a decision on them. Either to stay, or you just say, President Bwala Tinubu, we donate them to you. You understand? So that you know that you're running a party without them, and then you will know who to trust and who not to trust. Because you see, when you have these individuals, you think that those who submit to them are with you, and then on that day they will work against the party.
I'm a little confused. On the one hand, you say, take a decision on them.
Yeah.
On the other hand, you say there's a reconciliatory move ongoing.
Yeah.
So which is it?
The answer is simple. Reconciliatory means that if they agree to the reconciliation, they stay. If they don't agree to reconciliation, it cannot be Senate die. You have to take a decision on them. I mean, you can't keep saying we are talking of reconciliation forever. If the elections, decisions of court are all over, we can afford to be doing this dilly-dally. But I am looking at this presidential election court and the Supreme Court. And I have every reason to believe the worst we can get is runoff. Now, if we are declared runoff and these people are creating distraction, will it be good for me? Certainly no. So I will wish that the decision is made one way or the other. And the good thing is, nobody in Nigeria is indispensable.
But so far, have they been open to this reconciliation?
They have not been, in my view. Again, I'm not a member of National Working Committee. I'm not in any leadership position to talk on behalf of the party, but as a private citizen...
But your principal officer, I beg your pardon, is directly involved. So you would be in the know. You say that he is open to reconciliation.
He is till
tomorrow. So you would know if the others are also open, because it's between him and...
That's like who?
The G5 governors.
No, mention, you have to particularize them.
You know the G5.
In fact, they have become so many, I don't even know whether they are 5 now. Actually, it's a G1. Because the whole idea of G5 then was that the G5 constituted the 5 governors. Integrity now involves a wider. Now there is only G1, which is Makinde. So it's a G1 and integrity orders. So which one are you talking about?
Finally, Mr. Bwala, I'd want to take you up on the... I'm not going to concede to it, but we're out of time. The posture of INEC since the 2023 elections.
INEC is a failure.
So does that give your party any confidence going into the off-season elections?
I don't have confidence in INEC from now till eternity until the leadership of INEC is changed. I am of the view that the same way the President Bwala Ahmed Tinubu caused investigation of the central bank governor and the EFCC chair, I am surprised the INEC chairman has not been invited to the Department of State Services to question him on so many irregularities associated with this election. Remember the money that was earmarked for this election. And to come that day and say you have glitch what? With how many 100 billion? He has not been investigated. There is no confidence I have that any election that he conducts will be fair. I don't, as a human being. So if you ask, do I believe our party people will perform? I believe. But do I believe whether INEC will conduct free and fair election? I don't.
Very well, and that's a good place to leave it. I'd like to appreciate you for your time, Mr. Daniel Bwala. Always a pleasure to have you in Political Paradigm. And that's Political Paradigm. Thank you very much for your time as well. I've been speaking with Mr. Daniel Bwala. He's a lawyer and former spokesperson of the Atiku Presidential Campaign Organization. If you'd like to catch this episode again and others, simply go to YouTube or channelstv.com. Thanks for your time as well. I'm Terry Ikumi. Goodbye.